Bra, och god morgon / förmiddag beroende på vad man har för morgonrutiner. Och välkomna nu till Myndigheten för psykologiskt försvars Ukraina-dag. Idag kommer vi ha 4 olika seminarier och aktiviteter kopplat till just erfarenheter från kriget i Ukraina. Och tanken med det här är ju självklart att säkerhetspolitiska läget är ju svårt i Sverige, för Sverige i det Europa nu där vi har krig. Och här behöver vi hålla ögonen på vad som händer och hur vi behöver manövrera oss i den här materien. Det andra är ju också att vi måste ta tillfället att lära oss och utveckla oss. Och faktiskt ta vara på de handfasta erfarenheter som våra vänner i Ukraina tar med sig härifrån och också vad andra aktörer gör. Så att de här 4 seminarierna kommer först att gå ut på att nu på morgonen kommer ni få höra berättelser från fältet, från de som jobbar med strategisk kommunikation och sånt som vi kallar psykologiskt försvar. Vi kommer sen ha Timothy Snyder som kommer att ge ett mer strategiskt historiskt perspektiv. Sen kommer vi på eftermiddagen titta lite mer på hotbilden. Och sen avslutningsvis så kommer vi få hit Carl-Oskar Bolin, alltså den civila försvarsministern, som kommer att ge sina perspektiv på vad vi har lärt oss här under dagen också. Och även det seminariet kommer att börja med att de talarna vi har här på morgonen kommer ge en snabb recap. Sen kommer vi att diskutera vad vi kan ta med oss utifrån det här. Med det sagt så ska jag sluta uppta er viktiga tid och bjuda upp våran koordinator för stödet till Ukraina, och det är Nemo Stjernström som kommer vara vår moderator. Välkommen.
Tack Mikael, thank you. Now, Ukraine's resolve and resistance towards the Russian aggression has been, and still is, a beacon of inspiration for the rest of the world. So without further ado, directly from Kyiv, please welcome Mykola Balaban.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to share my words of gratitude to Swedish Agency for Psychological Defense and to our hoster for giving us possibility for sharing our experience and our thoughts. And so my name is Mykola. I'm working in Ukraine in the Center for Strategic Communication. Mostly we're working with Ukrainian society. So we research and try to fight back or build up the resilience of Ukrainian society to Russian information operation and malign influences. And since full-scale invasion, as you all know, it was a lot happens there, and Russia was very active. So my presentation will be mostly built on that, to share you the story about Russian information warfare and their activities in Ukraine. So since full-scale invasion in Ukraine, Russia began a massive attack on the integrity of Ukrainian information field and focused on like 4 main things. First is breaking the will of Ukrainians to resist and fight against the aggressor, discredit Ukraine in the eyes of the world, demoralizing and disorientate Ukrainian society, and also polarizing Ukrainian society. So it was like main strategic effort for Russians, and it's from the day one and still today and till today. It's absolutely understandable. So their information operations and their influence is like absolutely shadowed. It is the part of the convention warfare. And what's like one of the very important experience, and what we see, of course, we know it from theory, but it's basically in practice we see that information is one of the battlefields in modern conflicts, and with emerging of social networks and other new platforms, this this battlefield is much broader, wider, and and we need to work much more with that. So basically at our center we divide the Russian information in order to achieve those strategic goals. Basically, Russia works on different levels. We can divide and basically have the three up to now. Maybe there will be, when war will develop, there will be like some new additional phases to that. But basically, we have mainly like three phases of Russian influence and information operations since full-scale invasion. The first one we called information blitzkrieg. I will talk about that a little bit more. It was from the start of full-scale invasion and around autumn 2022. The second phase is what we called information trench warfare. And it's from winter to spring, from winter 2022 to spring 2023. And the third one is this we call regional micro-targeting. I just want to underline, it's not, those phases are not like the one phase is ended and the second started, and it's interconnected. But you know, when like also like similarly to the military, you know, the point of I will take the term, the point of greatest efforts from Russia, we see that it was changed according with their military or conventional warfare activities. So what we called information blitzkrieg is very, as I already say, similar tactics to conventional warfare that Russia was tasked. So basically, it's like inside of, you know, this big concept of it's called, sorry, I forgot the name, but generally to deteriorate Ukrainian society, to do any actions against aggressor. So like first of all, it's isolate information battlefield. What is mean? It's basically to show to cut Ukrainians from different sources of information receiving and reading news. The second is break chains of communications, and the third one is undermine Ukrainian trust in official information. They use the waves after waves of disinformation from different angles, from different locations. It was like very similar with this, with the meta narrative, with the next narratives. I think I have here with the meta narratives. Kyiv is surrounded. Kyiv will soon be captured. Ukraine government with the president had fled, and in this concept of like cutting Ukrainian like the information infrastructure. So at the picture you see on March 1st, Russia attacked Kyiv TV center. And according to the tactics, after cutting centralized communication capabilities, the integrity of the information field will collapse. We know like there is a lot of articles and report and research about that basically why it's not working, because Russia, like they thought they planned that that Ukrainian like this system is very similar to their system, which is like quite centralized and depends from top to bottom. But I will talk a little bit more about that it's not like that, and that's why they failed. But this first phase was like super massive, and it was very similar very similar to 2014, when after Euromaidan revolution, Russians with waves, with a huge amount of different disinformation, they basically overwhelmed Ukrainian information field, and basically they managed to cut like some integrity. But this time they did not manage to do that. And next phase, so after they understood that it doesn't work, it was very similar to the, as I underline all the time, to conventional warfare. So they understood it doesn't work like that. So Kyiv in 3 days doesn't working. The similar in information sphere, the integrity is we have still the integrity is present, and they switch this point. They switch their like main activities to what we called information trench warfare. Is more like localization of Russian disinformation from this national level to the regional level. So we see that the balance of where they try to attack go more to the regions, especially working with regionally frontline zones. All Russian efforts are aimed to foster resentment and division within society. So this similar as the previous phase, of course. The attacking critical infrastructure in the physical realm was followed by information operation about the blackouts and electricity rationing. The main narrative was some regions suffer, just like for you as a case study. It was different. The cases was different, but this one with electricity is like very visible and understandable. And the main narrative was like some regions suffer without heat and light, while Kyiv enjoys life. And there was a lot of other one, like Western Ukraine have the electricity, Central Ukraine don't have, or in Odessa region, in Odessa city, some communities in Odessa have the electricity, but other not. So they are like they are traitors, and you suffer, and that's why you need to protest. And basically, they manage. Even we work very closely with that topic, because they also want in physical space. They through the narrative that people, you need to go and protest against the city government, against the government. And in Odessa, there was even one of this type of of like protest, quite small one, but it was the process. So it's very in this. Just what I want to underline for you, it's like my takeaway from that presentation, that physical realm is like super connected with information realm. Of course, like it's like very simple thesis, but when I read, for example, before full-scale invasion, or when we read the analytics on that, we okay, but it's like it's all the time the discussions, you know, Facebook, Twitter, and other stuff. So, but it's only discussions and how they can harm, but they can, like, if and it's quite easy to overthrow like the legitimate discussion around some policy or around some region to with basically not too high level of manipulation, but with some persistent manipulation to aggressive discussion with like some physical realm activities. And the third phase, so it's like this information trench warfare, and the third phase that we see, and basically we are in this current phase, is the efforts of Russia to weaken regions as much as possible, to intimidate and destabilize regional population. The case that I chose for you, of course, is like the cases we can see in different regions close to the front line, basically from Mykolaiv and Kherson region to Chernihiv region, but the last one, like very big one and large information operation around that, it was like this Kharkiv counteroffensive. It's manipulation like this, with these geographic distances, use of like psychological terror through prolonged air alarms, increase Russian troops in Kharkiv region, readiness to capture the region. And I think I have the next. I know, no, it's it is like, well, also connected to their activities on the ground, but they try to convince society in the Kharkiv region that Kharkiv already is like fait accompli. Is Kharkiv already taken by Russia? It's only like it's a question of couple days. For that, they micro-target the groups of like some Telegram channels of some Ukrainian village, or like small communities around Kharkiv, or like in proximate vicinity. Also, they try to, with everything, like some SMS, also like it was like the Russian army already there, and it's so this like regional, like this micro-targeted but like macro storm was very visible, particularly in that region. And it's for this phase that we are now right now in Ukraine, for this phase of the war, of Russia invasion in Ukraine, and it's basically we are right now living in that. So here and there, like in different parts of front line and this front line regions. Is as we see that, but in any case, just I want to underline that of course there's still a lot of national-wide campaign or national-wide narratives, but they see that it's not work as they planned, so they change tactics. Basically, they adapt to the information battlefield. Let's put it like that. And my favorite slide is resilience, the factors for Ukrainian information integrity. It's first is government and civil society collaboration, joint efforts to countering disinformation. Especially it was like very visible, and basically it was felt in the air in the first year of full-scale invasion. And there was a lot of like basically simultaneous activities without any like center top to bottom orders or something like that, and it was very precise, very good. Experience from 2014, so basically Ukrainian society, it's not like some institution only or civil society only, but general Ukrainians, we're leveraging this past experience as a vaccine against current tactics. So also like it's important link when we thinking or analyzing like how Ukraine society manage to keep fighting or to keep this information integrity in 2022, that basically everyone, like we are like the children of Euromaidan and Russian activities after Euromaidan. For example, me myself, I'm the historian, and since 2014 I start to work in this domain of narratives, information warfare, psychological operations, and the experience that we have back then in 2014-15, basically through it was like the experience was analyzed and worked out through like this 10 years or like 6 years to 2025. So it's also important that basically we have this vaccine against Russian huge-scale information attack. Another very important is decentralization of like network of trust, what I called, and we at the center called, beehive communication model between state and non-state actors. It's also when I'm talking with international partners, analytics, researchers, and they say, guys, who is those people behind, this super smart geniuses that just like send the narratives for footline soldiers that make his video and uploaded it into the Facebook? And no one. There is no one. It doesn't work like that. We are not like from top to bottom system or like society. So basically, people have like this similar vision and they intimately know what to do. It was worked very well first 2 years of full-scale invasion. Right now it's a little bit changing because a lot of people, they are like war make it's quite heavy for anyone to bear for a long time, to this internal mobilization, and it's go down a little bit, and it's not working as well as it was like first two years. And of course, like also like my takeaway and just like underline is like very important whole society approach to countering disinformation, mobilization of civil society and NGOs to enhance the information integrity. It was like very important and vital link to Ukrainian information integrity, and basically why we withstand. So when people ask me what works, what doesn't work, the whole of society approach works. It is key. It is key for me. Of course, it's very hard to achieve. It's the civil society, the politics. There is a lot of different divisions. But when there is like this day D or like this this day of like full country mobilization, like this internal mobilization, it's like the whole society approach is working. And we can like go back to my these slides with Russians in March 2022, when they think that you can cut head and like the dragon will just fall apart. It's not like that, because we are not a dragon, we are bees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mykola. So before we will listen to Liubov Tsybulska, also straight from Kiev, I'll just change the presentation.
I just wanted to say that we would like to have as few dragons, of course, to defeat Russia. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's my honor to be here again, second time in a row. And yes, this is such an amazing event full of fresh ideas and solid experiences. I'd like to start with the video that my team made precisely for this event, and then I will proceed with my presentation.
Kiev may fall in a matter of days.
Kiev could fall to Russian forces.
Kiev will soon fall to Russian invaders.
Perfect. Thank you. So today I speak about resilience from the military perspective. And you all remember how 2 years ago the whole world was surprised by how Ukrainians got together, united, and started defending their country. We have seen a unique national uprising. We've seen huge queues to the conscription centers. And no one back then didn't want to be under Russia's rule, and nobody doesn't want it now. Back then and now we understand that to be under Russia's rule is to be tortured, to be raped, to be deprived of our language, our history, our identity, and to be killed. Today, looking back on 2 years, I understand that such cohesion, such willingness to fight, such resilience is not a given. It cannot be preserved, it cannot be maintained naturally without putting additional efforts into it. We feel this especially acutely now when people are exhausted, people are tired, there are no queues to conscription centers. Now we understand that we have to work much harder on this. And especially now when we see how much efforts Russia's put into information campaigns against our society. So I decided to start with this quotation because I think it very much reflects what we feel right now. Now Ukraine has two battles. One battle is external with our enemy, Russia, but another battle is internal one. It's for changes in approaches from Soviet approaches to modern, Western, human-centered approaches, and it goes for military too. Resistance depends on the morale of the society, and in particular the armed forces. And morale depends on four major factors: training, leadership, weapons and ammunition, and military, civil liaison and mature communications. Let's look at each of them. Training. According to all surveys in Ukraine, why people do not want to get mobilized is because they fear that they will not get proper training. It goes almost equally with the fear to get to some unprofessional, indifferent commander. At the beginning of full-scale invasion, most of the soldiers came from civilian life, untrained, unprepared for combat. They had only great motivation and desire to defend, to protect their country. Therefore, it's necessary to teach civilians basic knowledge and skills in military affairs throughout their lives. Also, civilians who joined the army are managed by professional military. Unfortunately, the training of professional military has not been changed significantly since gaining independence. And as a result, civilians paid for their indifference to the professional army with their own blood. Therefore, it's very important to prepare the backbone of the armed forces very well, especially commanders of all ranks, from squad commanders to the chief of staff. Then the next one is leadership. In addition to general training, we need to nurture, we need to train our leaders. This is a very multifaceted and very complex factor. In 1956, the American psychologist Benjamin Bloom developed a hierarchy of cognitive skills. It had 6 levels, and knowledge, as you can see, is the first one, the simplest level. And on the last 2, most advanced ones, synthesis and evaluation. So the ability to evaluate and plan is what every military leader has to be able to do. Unfortunately, the Soviet system, the Soviet education, gave knowledge, but didn't teach how to use this knowledge, how to plan, and how to be creative. And now, today, we see the consequences of this in our military management. Another thing that hinders the education of modern leaders is the culture within the armed forces. And I think this is something that's very important, and we feel this right now especially acutely. We still see the influence of Soviet military culture, which essentially was very autocratic, very obedient, very humiliating. If you watch Russian movies about the military, you will think that you watch some gangster world. And this comes from Soviet Union, where the whole society was very much criminalized. And since the armed forces is a very closed institution, this spirit, this energy survived there till now in Russia. And now we do our best to basically squeeze out the manifestation of this culture out of us. Although it's constantly fighting to stay. We see how modern Ukraine culture in the armed forces fights against the Soviets. It's like water and oil, they do not mix. Therefore, it's extremely important for us and for our partners to help us to implement the best Western practices in the education of military leaders. So that respect, creativity, critical thinking become a core part of it, because there are huge demands for this from young Ukrainian commanders. In 2014, Ukraine has changed its military doctrine and identified Russia as the main threat. However, the combat manuals did not undergo significant changes. So basically, most of them are just the Soviet manuals translated to Ukrainian. So all of them, since USSR, are designed for use of a large number of people. And this is something that we cannot afford right now. We have to protect our people because our resources are very limited, unlike Russia's. Weapons and ammunition. This is so difficult to fight without weapons, and it's extremely difficult and I would say impossible to fight if your enemy is the big country with very developed military industry. And since the beginning of full-scale war, we have lost many capable men and women because back then we didn't have enough weapons. Weapons must be modern, technological, in order to destroy a lot and effectively. And there shouldn't be a deficit of it. This is something that we feel right now when we have weapons enough, barely enough to defend ourselves, but not enough to win. Now, unfortunately, we have to cover entire areas in defense areas with people, while they could have been covered with technologies. And probably apart from the USA, there is no single country in the world that can provide weapons fully for itself. So especially taking into account that Russia is getting weapons from Iran, China, North Korea. Fighting spirit is influenced by the ability to destroy the enemy, but without weapons it's impossible. Even if there's a great amount of people, shortages of weapons will ruin the spirit. And military, this is very important one. We've been trying to introduce this since 2014, military and civilian liaison and mature communications. In our country, the war is managed de jure by the president, but in fact, by generals. And generals, sometimes they make mistakes, in particular in the consumptions of resources, like human and material, but also the strategy of waging the war. Therefore, it's so important to train politicians and civil society in military affairs. The military must be accountable. They must be controlled. And both society and the army must clearly understand the threat and our goals in the war. Our goal must be communicated to everyone. Every soldier in trench must understand what he or she is fighting for. Morale is the key in the struggle. Without it, even the plenty of weapons, it's impossible to win. Communications should be honest. It shouldn't distort reality and give too positive picture if the reality on the ground, on the battlefield, is different. That's what we feel right now, because in Ukraine we have this united marathon when our government basically forced a major TV channel to get united and to show kind of positive agenda, to give very positive picture. And now we have consequences of this politics. We see that many people think that, why should I sacrifice my life if everything is so good? We are winning anyway. Why should I go and join the army? So all these four components contribute to the adaptability, hope, and will to fight. And without them, it becomes impossible to win, because the main battle is not physical, it's psychological. When Russians attacked us 2 years ago, the first one who started fighting were professional military. But then very soon they basically ended. Majority of them were wounded or killed. So, and they were replaced by civilians. So to sum up, I would like to say something that I wish all Ukrainians had known before the big war. That in peacetime, society should be fully involved and interested in the armed forces. Do everything possible to ensure that armed forces are prepared psychologically, are provided with enough weapons, with enough trainings. Because after all, when the war comes, it is the society who becomes an armed forces. It's society who take weapons and go to fight. Thank you. Should we stay here?
Thank you so much, Liubov. Balaban, welcome back on stage. Before I give the floor to the audience, I'd like to just look ahead and ask you to, what is the main challenge looking ahead right now, and what gives you hope?
Maybe I will from hope and you from from challenge side. So, like the hope, I'm originally a historian by education. So, and for me, I like the history of Europe and Ukraine. And since last 300 years, Ukraine was always like along. Our neighbors don't understand us. Like generally, like Europe, who are those people? They are so far away. We have our own problem. And basically, it is the first time in 300 years that we have this solid support, but what is more important, understanding of like countries around Ukraine, faraway countries, that we are in that basically they understand our values, what we are standing for, and they give us support not only, which is absolutely extremely and vitally important in the piece of equipment, but they help us, I mean, Ukrainians, to understand that we are on the right side of history, that this majority of people that have the similar values are with us. So it's given me hope because politics are changing, ministers are changing. There is like some countries became more developed, some less, more like GDP per capita less, but basically the values that we have this feeling that right now Ukraine, that we are the part of Europe. We have this support and backing. Before the full-scale invasion, a couple days before, the CNN reporter asked me, like, back then we would raise awareness about like possible Russian attack. Okay, guys, what is the main, what you are afraid of? And I said, like, just that, what are Ukrainians afraid of? To be along with Russia, and everyone around us will say, okay, guys, it's your problems. We are not, and it's giving me hope.
Yeah, it gives me hope as well. The major challenge is that we might lose cohesion within the society we have. I think that there's threat coming from inside, when people are really exhausted and they do not have focus on their enemy, and they start blaming each other, they start fighting with each other. And it's easier, like we cannot express our anger to our enemy, so it's easier to direct this anger to somebody who is close to you. And but also cohesion within our allies. This is something that we, of course, are worried about. Russia is going to be aggressive. Russia has been aggressive. I don't think that Russia could be worse. Like, it's so bad that it couldn't be worse. So I don't think it's a challenge. What else? Like nuclear weapons? Then if they use nuclear weapons, probably this is like a last card they can use. Like nuclear weapon probably is much more effective when it's not used. So yes, cohesion within the society, within our allies.
Thank you so much. With that, please, any questions from the audience, please just raise your hand and the microphone will provide it to you. I know it's early, but... Well, we have a question.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Peter Åberg-Linder. I'm head of press and media at Swedish Defence Material Administration. I wonder, is it possible to actually get that conscience in the broad public or the total society? Just take any risk and you tend to ignore it because it seems far-fetched or even impossible. War certainly is one of those risks or factors that seems so unlikely that it's probably impossible in public opinion or in the average mind. So is it possible, do you think, to get that awareness in the general public that you were speaking of, is that you have to be prepared and actually serve or whatever the task will be? Do you understand my question? Yes, of course.
I think that use us as an example, because before the big war, we had thought that it was impossible. Like, it just cannot happen. The disaster of this scale cannot happen to us, but it happened. And we were not born for war. Nobody is born for war. We didn't know how to do this, and we still don't. I wish we knew all this. We had all this knowledge before. So we have to explain that, look, these are Ukrainians. They also thought that it was impossible, but you see what happened. You want to add?
I agree. I couldn't add anything more.
Yes. Let me see if this works. Urban Funred from the Capital Markets Association, so we're involved in kind of the resilience of the financial sector, which is also important, and I know that you have worked very well with that in Ukraine. But so that is one question. I mean, capital markets, I understand that they work relatively well in Ukraine, if you have some insights into that. And another question is, of course, President Zelensky, following in the footsteps of Ronald Reagan as an actor, not just acting president, but becoming president. Of course, Zelensky is, a key actor, really, to us outside of Ukraine. Can you say something, perhaps, from a historical point of view, what his leadership has meant to Ukrainians in Ukraine?
Thank you. Okay, let's start from. I will take the second question, and you.
I also want to take the second.
So I can start, and maybe we can make a small discussion. So there is, in my opinion, there is two main points. The first point, that basically Zelensky, his leadership, he said that he's very this human based, and he very grounded touch with humans. He did a lot of his communication. He tried to spoke with average person in his this short videos and other stuff. So basically it's to underline that I'm one of your kind, so I'm not part of the elite or something like that. And it was very helpful, and is still very helpful, because he's quite his communication, that he tried to be as much as possible simple, and one of the people in your neighborhood that just accidentally ruling the country. Sometimes it's a little bit other, but mainly it's one of his leadership specificalities. And considering the leadership, maybe Liubov.
I think it was very important from the very beginning that he stayed in Ukraine, although I'm sure that it was this whole uprising we had in 2022, it was from bottom to top. So it was not from him. He inspired people, but I think that he was inspired by people, those who early in the morning in February 24 realized that, okay, I'll take my kids to the border, and then I get back and join the armed forces. And there were so many, thousands and thousands. We had queues to the conscription center. So I think that he realized that, well, these people are ready to fight, so that's what I should do. The first question, financial one.
it's like, yeah, I'm not a specialist in that, but it's extremely important right now. There's a big victory that basically we can rely on the resources that Russia invest in European banks, and it's like, I think also it's unprecedented in history that basically if there will be this money flow from this Russian bank accounts, or at least the percentage from that, but it's also like the first precedent that basically country fighting with other country, and this country that fight back basically use the money from. So basically the Russia fighting against their money, or will fight in like couple months. So it's also like it's very. There will be books about that definitely. You know how the country fight against their like basically their money, their resources, or the resources that they collect. It's very interesting.
So good morning, Jan Mårtensson. I'm head of the Defense Materiel Administration in Sweden, and we have agreement with the Ministry of Defense in Ukraine, and I can promise we are doing all what we can to support you. But I have one question when it comes to how you support your country. The areas occupied by Russia since 2014, Crimea, the very eastern part of Ukraine, how can you manage and support your people in those areas?
It's extremely hard question. There is like a couple layers, so that's how we can manage. Like we can, first of all, like physically with resources, we can support only those people who come to Ukraine. So this became the IDP. But when we're talking about the people there under temporary occupied territories, it's basically impossible. Because Russia is like the part of like is in Russia constitutions even in those regions, and even informationally, it's extremely hard just to have a conversation with them. We see the phenomenon that we called in Ukraine information iron curtain. Sorry for such a lot of like similar like words, but Russians, they are very good when they occupied new areas. They basically build up super like sophisticated and strong information curtain from everything. They have their own internet, they own like their own all technical stuff. They immediately the cars with propaganda just like moving around different village, and just like curtain should go down, and there is like the Russian news just on big screen in like some small village, and they working super actively, and Ukrainian government do not have like any possibility to just to penetrate and to help somehow. I think you heard about like what Russians do with Ukrainian children's, and that they take like inside of Russia. Basically, it's like kidnapping, and it is kidnapping, and it's horrible situation. But like only what we control is only this thin red line, the front line, you know, where we have like the possibility Ukrainian state government can do any stuff. Everything behind that, it's like fully for us like almost impossible. Of course, we try through different also like Telegram channels. Also, we try to do some messaging. We try to, and also we have this channel called Dom, basically for Russian speakers. And idea behind when they create this channel was to work in there. But unfortunately, Russians don't allow or don't give possibility to this signal just to penetrate those territories. There is some like messaging. Right now, what is basically government do, and it's very close to the President Zelensky, and like this general communication that inside of his like narrative, he tried to sometimes to talk with people from temporary occupied territories, and and try to share these narratives that you are not alone. Ukraine is not forgot about us, because also what Russia tried to do, when I'm talking about the isolation of information battlefield, for them, they also try to isolate those people that they are occupied. to isolate from any information from Ukraine, and they fed them that Ukraine does not exist anymore, and there is only fascists there, and basically they working very actively just to reteach on all levels, from school, from kindergarten to the pensioners and old people with different narratives. Sorry for such a long answer.
So basically they create this Russian bubble around these people, and there are some brave people who fight, who are trying to do some activities there, but it's very dangerous for them even to watch online some Ukrainian channels or Ukrainian media. But I agree that when Mariupol was without electricity, without internet, and people were sad that Ukraine abandoned you, or Kyiv is under our control, so they're trying to convince people that there is doesn't make sense to fight anymore.
No hope.
And in Kherson, there is no hope. And in Kherson, they were saying that, like, you are abandoned. Ukrainian government, when Kherson was occupied, Ukrainian government doesn't care about you. Yeah.
Any more questions?
But we have a person from public broadcaster, and he can give us overview on how we are trying to. No, that one. Yeah.
Thank you, Luba. I'm Andriy Taranov from the Ukrainian Public Broadcasting Company. So I basically think that it is important that, I do remember a bit of Soviet Union and my dad listening to the radio at that times. And it was important that Ukrainian radio, even centrally, we gave the announcements about the evacuations from Mariupol, and you could have heard our radio through AM broadcasting system in the beginning of the war. They destroyed the Chasiv Yar and Mykolaiv transmitters since then, and we are in the discussion with the European Broadcasting Union so that we might have more rebroadcasting of AM signals throughout the territories of eastern Ukraine and west of Russia, at least at nights, that it can be reached from the continent, not from Ukrainian territory. It's very old, very expensive, and absolutely useless technologies for normal civilian life, so it doesn't work that fast and effective. But what's important, and what I believe is a factor, is that it's still very different to the Soviets compared to the penetration of social network and the digital channels, and this is where the huge difference of the Ukrainian occupied territories and the Russian side is that we spent 10 and a bit more years trying at least to push their platforms out of Ukraine, since VK and Yandex were out of Ukraine. Average citizens that are on occupied territories would rather have Facebook than VK, and would know Telegram is political. Well, anyway, they have big issues with their reputation, but they penetrate everywhere, and they block. They are good at blocking the channels locally in Russia, but the information does penetrate through with the social media and social platforms first and foremost. AM radio is still something that can reach you like in good olden days of 20th century, but it does, I must say seriously, it does work for security situation. That's how I feel about it, and I do believe that they can't build a China wall that will block all of the Facebook and YouTube and Telegram with every channel there. So we keep working on that every day. Thank you.
So there's time for at least one more question. Yes.
Hi, Arvid. You talked a lot about this, your work against the Russian propaganda and against civilians, but how does it work? How do you work against the propaganda on the front lines for the soldiers which maybe don't have access to mobile telephones or television due to electronic warfare, etc.?
You know, now it's a bit even easier than it used to be 10 years ago in 2014 and 15, because back then I remember what Russia would do. They would just bring Wi-Fi spots And since people had, to stay in trenches for a long time, so they would just join Russian Wi-Fi, and that's how Russians would get geolocations, personal information, steal personal information of their families, and so on. So now we instruct our military, and we did a lot of, manuals for them. How to act in information space, what to use. It still doesn't work perfectly. Like military still use Telegram, because Telegram is so convenient. You can do whatever you want there, but it's not safe. And by the way, Russian military, they instruct their soldiers to use Telegram more. So probably it says something. So but again, Army is the armed forces. It's a part of the society. They do not exist separately. They have conversation basically daily with their families, and they are influenced by the families who read news and exist in some information bubbles. So it's goes all together. So we have to work with the armed forces and to protect them, but also to understand that we cannot work only with one group. We should work with all of them.
I just add a little bit here, like it's also awareness building around like the soldiers and the military community about if you're using, your phones, or if you make photos, how we try to teach them or to explain them how that basically if you make a photo somewhere near your unit or where you dispatch, it's mean like, look, or this just without even geo, every photo's mobile phone can like have this geo tag on that, but even without geo tags, with OSINT, you can like basically triangulate where this photo was taken, and basically the shell next day or next couple of minutes just like go straight there where you make a photo. And but it's constant work. We prepare different type of communications. I think the last 2 weeks at the CEC we prepared a special TV piece, for like how you can uncover your position and why it's important not to share the photos with your like where you are unit staying or something like that. So it's constant work, because there is a changes in how people communicate between each other. As Liuba say, right now it's like because internet is so good, and basically with the family you have the FaceTime like every day, and it's some like new ways you should explain them how it's actually safer for them to use the phone or other devices.
And back then, I remember in 2015, when we had this Debaltsevo operation, when our forces had to retreat from Debaltsevo because Russia brought their regular troops. But I remember that it was, to the largest extent, it was moral factor, it was spirit factor, because all the soldiers were getting messages and calls from their families in Ukraine saying that, leave it, it's so dangerous. We know that you are kind of encircled. That's what Russia was telling our population, that our forces in Debaltsevo are encircled. So it was to the largest extent, the result of what people got from their families. And like now we have to explain them something like, do not follow honey traps, do not meet girls online, things like this, because they use all possible means to infiltrate, and influence.
We have time with one more question.
Thank you. I am Guttorm Månes from the Nordic Council of Ministers. Thank you so much for coming here and telling us about your experiences. What we are seeing is an unprecedented global information warfare, in my opinion. And it is obvious that not only is Ukraine succeeding, but also Russia. We recently in Norway had two famous authors writing in the newspapers, repeating Russian talking points and sort of Russian disinformation. So it happens here as well, probably in Sweden. I don't know. I live in Oslo, so. But my question is, what's your best advice to the people and authorities in the Nordic countries on how to build resilience against Russian disinformation?
That's a big one.
Simple as that. You want to start?
You
start.
The first of all is to build resilience is it's the advising for the governments, advising for the civil society or for the country as a whole. So is a little bit different, but like even we're talking about like the governmental institutions, it's very important to understand holistically that like disinformation is not only like domain of cyber, or so like sometimes when there is like this building of governmental institution is like domain or press and this discussion about freedom press. That first of all, build anything on the basis or on the premises that the disinformation, information operations is multi-field stuff, and only with joint forces with people from intelligence community, the journalists and news community, within different communities, only like this holistic approach to do something together and build up something like only with this simultaneous working together on some stuff, because it depends very much on on how the governments design in different countries.
I'll just support your message. So Russia works really very skillfully with different audiences. So if you think that audience of like 15 years old are not affected, that's wrong. They all affected. They have very tailored messages for all kinds of audience. Those who watch TV, those who do not watch TV, who just use internet and so on. So make sure that you have messages shaped for different audience, and cooperate more probably with civil society, because it's better when it's done all together, government and civil society, when they do not contradict each other.
And another what is very important is international to working together. For example, if you have like maybe regionally Scandinavia or even better European Union or Europe, because another what is very important that it's like this disinformation and this narrative, they are cross borders. And in order to cut them, you need to work together, like governments around the like-minded governments, let's put it like that, or democratic governments. That also that as much as like international this cooperation on cutting the roots and possibilities for some disinfo spreaders to work within the cross-border communication, it's also like very important. That's why, for example, in Ukraine we right now have this debate. We want very much to build out something we call Information Rammstein, something similar to like information coalition against malign actors, something similar like you help us with weapons, but actually like we can do some platform that you help us also in information field, and we will share our what we know and our approaches with not only Russia but other malign actors and possible malign actors. But it's international communication is extremely important in that domain, because this information is not only about the countries.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for coming and to listen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.